Welcome to Sports Beat KC, the Kansas City Star's daily sports podcast. It's Wednesday, December 16th, and I'm Blair Kirchhoff. Plenty happening in college sports, even as we were reporting today. As Kansas State beat writer Kellis Robinett and I were discussing the Wildcats, the school announced it was withdrawing from bowl consideration. So when you get to that part of the discussion, Kellis breaks down the reasons why it might happen, and then it happened. Kellis is a smart dude. We also cover the Wildcats' victory over Iowa State on Tuesday night. Amazing to think this was the same team that fell to Fort Hays State last week. After a break, Mizzou beat writer Souichi Terada joins us to talk rankings and what it means to be in the top 25 for football recruiting. This is signing day after all, and in men's basketball. The Tigers are coming off a terrific victory over Illinois on Saturday. So let's get started with Kellis Robinett on K-State. Okay, we're here with Kellis Robinett. And Kellis, let me first of all say that if you hear any sort of drilling or hammering or any sort of, semi-construction noise in the background, we're having some work done at our house today. Notice I'm not participating in the work done in our house today, but professionals are, and so I hope we're not terribly disrupted today.
Yeah, well, if you hear any banging or loud noises in my house, that is my kids wreaking havoc upstairs.
That's right. Doing their own kind of construction at your place.
Exactly.
All right, Kellis, we're just just a few hours removed from one of the more remarkable outcomes of the short college basketball season so far, with Kansas State going to Iowa State and winning at Hilton Coliseum, and not only winning, but winning somewhat comfortably. After the first couple of minutes, they were in control of this game, and I don't think anybody needs to be reminded this was a Kansas State team that lost to Fort Hays State last week and has since defeated Milwaukee, and now a Big 12 road win up in Ames. It's been pretty impressive what we've seen from Bruce Weber's group and the response to that Fort Hays State loss. Let's kind of take it chronologically. It kind of started with the players only meeting, didn't it?
It did. That happened pretty much exactly after that loss to Fort Hays. Bruce Weber said he was trying to figure out where everybody was to set up a practice the next day. He couldn't get a hold of anybody until eventually I think Mike McGurl or somebody texted and said, "Hey, hold on, Coach, we're in a meeting. We'll get back to you." So, yeah, they basically, that they realized that was humiliating, unacceptable, that they knew how bad of a loss it was, and they talked about it. They figured out what they needed to do, and then, I don't want to give all the credit in the world to players only meeting, because Bruce Weber, to his credit, did make some very significant lineup changes since then, and that's been, I think, the biggest factor of all. But the team has been dialed in since that loss. The coaching staff has made some good moves since then. And, you don't want to get too far ahead of yourselves here. It's only wins against Milwaukee and Iowa State, who only has one win this season. But still, you can see the improvement that they've had in the last week. And it will be interesting to see at the end of the year. It's definitely possible at this point that people look back at that Fort Hays loss as a kind of a blessing in disguise. It's still too early to say exactly what happens from that, but so far the dividends have been good. It got their attention, kind of like a wake-up call, and they've been playing like a different team.
I thought it was really important to play well in the next game, and they did that and got the result with the 1-point win over Milwaukee. But the other thing that struck me was that Iowa State presents it's always a tough place to win up at Ames, but it's not but Iowa State, as we know, just based on, as you said, based on the results, not having a great season. I kind of looked at this as a coin flip game, but I think they got confidence from beating an opponent after Fort Hays State. I think they proved to themselves that they're not the team that was on the floor against Fort Hays. And, if that was the case, then, who in the world was Kansas State going to beat going forward? Well, the next game out, they beat somebody, right? And it beat a Division I program. I thought that was significant. And then to go up to Iowa State, to take a victory. Let me ask you this, Kellis. Who is Carlton Lingard?
That's a
I
great
I, I,
game.
sw- I promise you, I did not. I thought I knew the K State roster well. I did not know who Carlton Lindgard was until I started. You know, until he made a three basically, and
Right.
then I was like, oh my gosh, what? And then he made another one. So tell us about Carlton Lindgard and what he contributed to K State's win last night.
Right. Well, Carlton Lindgard was the very last newcomer that Kansas State signed during the 2020 recruiting cycle. He was the fallback option. They thought they had Donovan Williams, who ended up at Oklahoma State. He briefly committed to the Wildcats, we all remember, and a day later flipped to Oklahoma State. So they missed out on him. They had to go find somebody else. Their fallback option was Lindgard, who was a junior college big man. He's from San Antonio. He was playing at Temple Junior College in Central Texas, and he showed some skills as a like a stretch four kind of player. Can step outside, hit some threes. The rub on him was just he was just incredibly skinny. I don't remember exactly what his measurements were coming out of junior college, but I remember looking at him and thinking, my goodness, he can't. It seems like wind would probably knock him over. He was like 7 feet, 170 pounds. It was crazy or something like that. But now he's the same height and he's well over 200 pounds now since he's gotten to Kansas State, and he can still shoot. And we saw it last night when he did get in the game. Iowa State just looked at him and saw this 7-footer standing by the 3-point line, didn't bother to guard him. He knocked down a couple threes, ended up with 10 points. And he's still got a long ways to go. You can tell he's not the fastest or quickest guy out there, but shoot, if he can come in and knock down threes with any kind of consistency, there's nobody going out to block that shot. So
No,
that'll help the Wildcats.
it's no, that was stunning to see, and I love the social media reaction to him when he started to heat up a little bit. He entered the game with having scored four. He only played in two games, had scored four previously, and ended up with 10 against the Cyclones. So certainly had an impact on the game. As did I think Davian Bradford is kind of living up to a little bit of the expectation. The guy is just he's a weapon, right? I mean, this is a guy that can be a significant contributor to the Wildcats.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely. And maybe it just took him a few games to figure out the way to play at the college level to get used to Bruce Weber's system. But now, I mean, he seems like he's figured it out now, and he already strikes me as the most offensively skilled big man post player that Kansas State has had at least since DJ Johnson, maybe even before that. I mean, the only other like offensively skilled big I can remember is Dean Wade, but he wasn't a true post guy. Bradford, you throw the ball to him around the rim. I mean, he's going to finish. He's shooting 65.4% for the season. He's automatic on lob dunks. He's good at layups. I asked Dejuan Gordon about him last night, and he compared him to Udoka Azubuike at Kansas. So that's how they feel with him. Just throw it up inside, good things happen. And I actually looked it up. He is ahead. He is shooting a better percentage right now than Doak did as a freshman when he was at KU. So that's very encouraging. And it's kind of funny to think about, much like thinking back to the football team when they had some COVID issues and had to throw out some players that they maybe didn't necessarily want to against Oklahoma in a football game this year. And they come out and win the game. Turns out some of the guys they put on the field were much better than they expected. I think that's what's happening here with Bradford. He was backing up Casey Iziagu to start the season, but now he's out with a knee injury. They've had to go small, and that's really unlocked something here. It's an absolute perfect fit for not just the freshman guards who are out there creating space, but it's a perfect fit for Bradford because he's got a lot of room inside, and they're getting the ball to him. And I think that's a big reason why they've won these last two games.
Well, that's an interesting comparison to Doak as a freshman. Doak, in his final year, set the NCAA record for field goal percentage because all he did was dunk and shoot at the basket. It was around 80%. So, interesting stuff. All right, Kellis, let's switch it over to football. Today is National Signing Date, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But I wanted to ask you first. Last few weeks on our podcast, we've talked about bowl possibilities for the Wildcats, and those still exist. But there's another possibility as well, and that possibility is not participating in a bowl. We're seeing we're seeing some schools pull out of, or basically ending their season, right? Virginia, Boston College, Duke, to name a few, and then of course bowls are disappearing as well. SMU latest, I guess, to end their season and not playing a bowl, and then again, bowl games are kind of falling by the wayside. Is it adding up to Kansas State possibly not playing in a bowl game this year?
Yeah, I think we have to start thinking about that as a real possibility. Last week, I would have said, probably 90% chance Kansas State goes ahead and plays. Even at the very start of this week, I'd have said, 80, 85%. I'd say now it's down to probably a coin flip, maybe even favoring not playing. And it's not that Kansas State doesn't want to play. It's not that the Big 12 bowl games aren't going to be played necessarily, but I think just a myriad of factors have kind of lined up to make this harder than Chris Kleiman initially had hoped. They've had two guys announce that they're going to go pro and not participate in the bowl game, Bradley Moore and Wyatt Hubert. They've had a couple players that got dinged up against Texas in that game that they learned probably won't be ready to go in a bowl game. And then they've had some more players test positive for COVID, which sounds crazy because they've already had like 80 guys do that. But some new players have figured out a way to get exposed to it. So I think the numbers are just running awfully thin, to a point where they can safely play. And just given that they only won 4 games, there's not a whole lot on the line here for a bowl game. If they were to play in one, it would most likely be the First Responder Bowl. Down at SMU, probably against like Texas San Antonio or something like that. So if you look at that and think, well, do we go ahead and play a game like this just for the experience, for a few extra days of practice, or do we sit it out? Do we opt out and just let everybody go enjoy Christmas? It's been a long year. Let's not risk more injuries or anything like that. I think that's where they're at right now. They got to decide which way they want to go, and I think that's a decision they're going to have to make in the next couple of days. There's definitely arguments on both sides.
Yeah, and you're right about the timing. It does have to be made by the end of the week because the bowl invitations go out on Sunday after the college football playoff announcement, and usually the bowls are starting to make arrangements now. We've already seen some teams pop up in bowl games. So, all right, Kellis, it is National Signing Day, and it's Chris Kleiman's second class, so or third class technically. He gets the one before he started his first season. So, how are things shaping up? What would be? We know the trend of Kansas State is to do more with less. That has been true historically for the Wildcats, and which they outperform their recruiting ranking. Are they going to be in a position to do that this time?
Well, that's certainly the hope. They've got a very Kansas State-esque class here. 1 4-star player in quarterback Jake Rubley. Everybody else 3 stars. There's maybe 1 2-star guy in there. But yeah, they're ranked, in the mid 50s nationally for the recruiting services. I think they're ranked 7th in the Big 12 with the recruiting services. So pretty much what you've come to expect over the last couple of years. But there is some nice upside with a lot of these guys. I find it interesting that they went out and found a offensive lineman from North Dakota, which is obviously Chris Kleiman's old stomping grounds. He looks like he could be a pretty good player, Andrew Langang. And then there's a lot of Kansas flavor in there too. We've got Austin Weiner from Gardner. We've got Devontae Pritchard from Gardner, Gavin Hasselhorst from Hayes. A few other guys who will probably come along. Daryl Jones from Coffeyville. It just kind of screams, screams at you like a vintage Kansas State class, and they've obviously got some guys they still need to add on traditional signing day. But obviously the headliner is Jake Rubley. He's a 4-star guy, had offers from LSU, some really big programs out there. Kansas State very, very rarely lands players like that. So all eyes are going to be on him as soon as he gets to campus. How quickly can he compete with Will Howard and Skylar Thompson if he comes back at quarterback? That's what everybody's going to want to know.
Yeah, that's certainly a big topic for the next time we chat. What becomes of Skylar Thompson and other Wildcats who would be moving on but have the ability to come back because of because of the NCAA rule this year. And hey, let's end on this note. There was some news. Wyatt Hubert has decided to move on. What a really good season he had. Whenever I watched Kansas State play, you always had to know where 56 was. Just an excellent player. And what are the early thoughts on draft prospects for him?
I mean, I think he's going to get picked. It'll really come down to how his combine goes. If he can prove to NFL players, to NFL scouts that he's got, all the measurables you want and can put up a good 40 time and all that stuff. I think he could go in the middle rounds. Kansas State, unfortunately, as we all know, was had a very long draft streak ended this last season. They didn't have a single player drafted in the 2020 draft. I think that definitely ends in 2021. Somebody's going to come out and pick Hubert. It's just a question of where. I think he's definitely a day 3 guy, maybe even a day 2 guy if things go well for him.
Gotcha. Okay, there is a Kansas State signing day tracker on the WichitaEagle.com site and KansasCity.com as well. So follow the news from Kellis Robinett. Kellis, great talking to you, and we will catch up to you again soon.
All right, thanks, Blair. Looking forward to it.
Hey, it's Blair. We have a special subscription offer for SportsBeat KC listeners, unlimited digital access to the Kansas City Star's award-winning sports coverage. Sign up now for 1 year of Sports Pass for access to all the sports news, features, and columns presented on the KansasCity.com site, and it's only $30. That's a 40% savings off our regular rate. Your subscription will automatically renew after the initial term at $50 unless you tell us to cancel. Your subscription helps support the sports coverage of KansasCity.com and the Kansas City Star, and that support has never been more important. Please visit KansasCity.com/SportsBeatKC offer to get this special offer. And as always, thanks for listening. Souichi Terada covers Mizzou for the Star, and we just finished talking to Kellis Robinett, who covers Kansas State, about signing date. Wildcats are having their typical toward the bottom of the Big 12 ranking. They typically outperform that ranking, but Missouri looking strong in the rankings. I looked up rivals this morning before we started talking, and looks like the Tigers are a top 20 program right now when it comes to recruiting rankings. It's always good to be up in the rankings. So, what is the latest, Souichi? I know that the commitments are coming fast and furious, or the signings are coming fast and furious today.
Yeah, Blair, it's not quite as fast as some other schools. I think I read somewhere that Ohio State had 20 of their 21 commitments or similar number like that signed by like 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. Eastern time. So it's not quite that fast. I believe Mizzou has announced around 6 or 7 as we're recording this. They actually just picked up, and things might change, obviously, especially with it being signing day, but they just picked Colorado defensive end Arden Walker's commitment. So that's always a nice little thing, especially when you can pick up another prospect on signing day and everything. So, but yeah, Blair, as you mentioned, Drinkwitz has been doing a spectacular job on the recruiting trail. They're currently 20th on Rivals, I believe. That they'll probably finish around a top 25 program, and I think with where you're at in Missouri, and you're not going to be a top 10 perennial recruiting school, I think, just because of the way culture and facilities and just where you are location wise geographically. But if you can be a top 25 top 20 program year in year out like Drink has done to start off, I think you're looking great there.
And look, I've been covering recruiting for these many decades, and the idea that you can't tell, you won't be able to tell the true strength of a recruiting class for several years is always true, but there is a perception. One thing I have learned over the years, there is absolutely a perception to be won this time of year, and to be at a top 20 or top 25 program in recruiting, that gets noticed, it gets talked about, it's important, and so it is with the Tigers, and of course, if you're in the SEC, to be in the top 20, top 25, it sounds great, right? But that probably makes you 7th, 8th, 9th in the SEC. because Alabama will be up there, Georgia, LSU, Florida, the usual suspects will be in the top 10 to 15. But anyway, for Missouri in previous years has been down in the 30s and the 40s. If they can climb into the 20s this year, that bodes well for the Tigers. How many are they going to end up signing with this class?
Yeah, I believe Drinkwitz has said in the past, they're going to shoot for that 25. Going into signing day, they're essentially shooting for one or two more recruits to maybe flip, just like they did with East St. Louis wide receiver Dominic Lovett. But they're looking to take the full allotment. If they don't hit that between now and the regular signing period in February, because that exists, they could hit the transfer portal. So Mizzou does small thing too, Blair, but kind of a significant thing. Mizzou does also get 4 scholarships back from the NCAA after those infractions. Yes, we're still talking about that, however many years after the initial infraction and scandal and everything. So, but things are looking good, bright for Mizzou when it comes to numbers as well.
I enjoyed his Merry Flipmas tweet from from the weekend. It got everybody all excited. I hadn't heard that term, but I like that Flipmas. That's the season that we are in. So, all right, let's look at another ranking. I'm switching sports, switching polls, and scrolling down my AP top 25. 10, 12, 14, 16. 16. Look who's at number 16. The Missouri Tigers are in the poll at number 16. I mean, listen, if they were ranked higher, I wouldn't have been surprised. But it's good to see them included in the AP top 25. Clearly deserving. I actually don't know of a program that has a better resume so far this season than Mizzou. The Illinois game on Saturday, of course, is what got them in the polls. So wins over Illinois and Oregon on the road at Wichita State among the better wins for the Tigers this year. Let's go back to Saturday night though, and Missouri's win over Illinois. I was so impressed, just so impressed with the way the Tigers played, and we've talked about it each week here, Souichi, that they find different ways to win. Their depth is so improved. They're healthy. I think that's certainly an underrated aspect of this team. They're at full strength. What is it that you like about this Mizzou team?
Yeah, Blair, and you mentioned it as well. You know what? I to start this off, I was just so impressed with Drew Smith on Saturday and what he gave the Tigers. And it wasn't necessarily just the points, but that's his production, his defense. You know, he played 39 minutes, and I think that's just kind of indicative of what Conzo Martin truly believes in this player and calls him the best two-way player in the SEC and all of these things. But besides that, you know, it was the intensity of the game. You could see, I don't know how much you could see it on TV, I guess, or feel it, but even within, you know, it was a very sparse crowd. Only friends and family were allowed, so it was kind of weird. Blair, Vahe and I were talking, and we kind of thought maybe there were more Illinois fans in Mizzou Arena than Mizzou fans, or at least they were more vocal for parts of it. But I was just so impressed with the quality of play, the intensity of the game, and all of these different things. But at the end of the day, I really think you're seeing a team that's finally putting it together, and you get how, you know, we keep hitting the same theme just because it's so true in the sense that you have four guys who score in double figures, and maybe a Kobe Brown isn't somebody you expect to score in double figures every game, or maybe a Javon Pickett isn't that, except, you know, Pickett versus Illinois is kind of its own little monster there.
Right,
But
right.
you look up and down that roster, and it can go however many players deep. And, you know, you have a guy like Torrance Watson. Fans are kind of wondering where he's at, and it's just maybe he's the one guy left out. But you feel good about that just because of where Mizzou is at and how they're defending and all of these different things. So I think, you know, maybe 16 was actually a little lower than some fans were expecting. I think are obviously, not to throw him under the bus, but there are some pollsters like Jesse, our friend Jesse Neal, who does do it by Ken Palm, and I believe Mizzou is around 38. So there is still some work to do, and it is still early. You know, Mizzou has only played 5 games. You have the whole SEC schedule to look forward to, which is I'm really looking forward to it, Blair. You got December 30th, number 10 Tennessee versus number 16 Mizzou to start things off, and that's looking like a great game. So I think you're just feeling just mighty impressed with these Tigers, and you can finally see Conzo Martin's vision coming together, which I think is I think the coolest thing just because of all the injuries and everything he's had to deal with. And it's a very cool thing to see kind of things unfold for a fourth year coach like that, trying to make a statement.
You mentioned Torrance Watson, and I think he's a good example of something that I've long believed, especially with college basketball, but true in sports, but especially in college basketball, and that is when you have players who have contributed more earlier in their career than they are currently in their career, and they didn't fall off talent wise. It's just that the talent around them got better or healthier, and that's a good sign for a program. I listen. I can remember one of Scott Drew's early teams at Baylor. Had an all conference level guard as a freshman, and by the time he was a senior, he wasn't even starting because the talent around him had gotten so much better. So that's what happens in college basketball. It's not a knock on the kid or his progress. It's just that the Tigers are just playing at such a level right now that they can get by with him averaging about 5 minutes a game instead of the 23 minutes he played as a freshman. So it's actually a good sign for Missouri. And if he can keep a good attitude about it, then I think he'll be rewarded down the road. What does Mizzou have coming up in hoops before Tennessee? They got a couple games, don't they?
Yeah, so it's Prairie View A&M, a sub 300 Ken Palm team. On Friday at 7 p.m. Then they got Bradley, who is a little bit spicy. They've won, I believe, back-to-back Mountain West Conference championships. They gave my alma mater, MSU, kind of a scare in the first round a couple of years ago in the NCAA tournament. So that's not necessarily a team you can kind of look over or pass over. And then you have kind of a break, which is nice over Christmas. And then it'll be the SEC opener on December 30th. So things are happening quick. I know Big 12 play is already underway, and it's kind of a weird thing to see in December.
Yeah, it is, and I think it's great that they're going to play Tennessee out of the box in SEC play. So it's a lot to look forward to there. Hey, let's finish it up, Souichi, talking football. The Tigers finished the regular season on Saturday at Mississippi State. I can't remember when this game was originally scheduled and how many times it moved, but here it is, playing on December 19th on a day when all the conferences are playing their championship games. There's several regular season games to be played. Mizzou, Mississippi State is one of them. I don't know if bowl positioning is on the line for Missouri. I think their credentials are pretty well established at this point. It'd be nice to end the regular season on a victory, but what do we know about Mizzou's bowl possibilities? And I did hear earlier this week that Eli Drinkwitz really enthusiastic about playing in the postseason.
Yeah, exactly, Blair. And you're seeing, I believe, right now, I'm seeing our boss Jeff Rosen's tweet. It seems K-State is withdrawing from bowl consideration because of COVID. So
Yeah,
you never
we
know with
talked.
these kind of things. Oh yeah, yeah. So you never know with these kind of things, but yeah, Mizzou looks like it's going bowling. As you mentioned, this game was rescheduled from December 5th to December 19th now. I'm surprised I still remember that, but yeah, I think all the projections are kind of looking at maybe the Outback Bowl or a similar level bowl. I think that would be pretty impressive. And you know what, Blair? I think the thing that's kind of impressed me the most with this Mizzou team is that when they were ranked last week, and I know number 25, and I know there were critics. I think the fact that you had however the top four teams, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, and Texas A&M, you had kind of a gap below that talent wise, probably. But the fact that you had Mizzou as kind of that fifth SEC team and you couldn't really debate that, I thought spoke dividends. And of course, you can't debate that, this is the SEC, but just the fact that you look at that and you're kind of like, oh, Mizzou, fifth team in the SEC. And sure, maybe that doesn't mean as much in a pandemic year, but the fact that Eli Drinkwitz has done that in his first season, I think speaks a lot. And they'll be rewarded, just like Drinkwitz said in those bowl projections. I'm really hoping for Mizzou versus Northwestern just because of the day school connection. I know it happened in 2008 Alamo Bowl, top 25 matchup overtime, such a. Yeah, that was 12 years ago. I was 11 years old at the time. There were a whole generation of sports and just normal journalists who want this matchup. So I think maybe the old heads can kind of embrace that a little bit and not be my Twitter mentions pointing that game out. But that's what I'm hoping for. I think it'd be fun. But yeah, I really think a bowl game is just a cool thing to end a note on. And if Mizzou wins, Blair, on Saturday against Mississippi State, and I believe they should against a pretty bad Bulldogs team, you're finishing 6-4 regular season, regardless of what happens in your bowl game. You're finishing with a winning record, and I think I think at the end of the day, when you look at everything from 2020 and the pandemic, I think that would be a pretty cool thing. And be able to say, hey, look, we had a first year head coach in Eli Drinkwitz, and we still, Mizzou still ended up with a winning record. And I really think players, and obviously they're going to play hard, but I think that's just another thing, another feather in their cap.
Yeah, and would give Mizzou a lot of momentum going into the offseason and into next season with their freshman quarterback and talent returning. So I'll tell you what, I'm here for a Mizzou-Medill war of words for a Missouri Northwestern bowl game. That would be fantastic. And I remember that one back in 2008. It was a game that Missouri was supposed to win easily. I think they were favored big and pulled it out at the end. It was Chase Daniels' last game. Chase Daniels, *S, final game for the Tigers. So, okay, Souichi, terrific catching up with you, and we will do it again soon. Let me add that you have a tracker, Missouri recruiting signing day tracker, on the Kansas City Star website right now. So, follow all the coverage of Missouri's football signing date on kansascity.com with Souichi providing the upsets. Okay, Souichi, we'll talk to you soon.
All right, thanks, Blair.
That'll do it for today. Thanks to our production staff of Derek Donovan, Beth Welsh, Monty Davis, Jeff Rosen, Chris Fickett, and Savannah Smith. A tip of the cap to Kellis Robinett and Souichi Terada for stopping by and talking college sports. Links to their stories can be found in the show notes and on kansascity.com. Hey, we got another deal for you, especially for those who want to deep dive into the Stars' terrific Chiefs coverage. For a limited time, you can subscribe to Sports Pass for 99 cents a month. That's right, 99 pennies a month. After 3 months, it auto-renews at $5.99 a month unless you tell us to cancel. How do you get it? You go to kansascity.com/sportspass2020. That's kansascity.com/sportspass2020. Do you want more than just sports coverage? I know I do. Check out the entire Kansas City Star product. Sports news, features, commentary, and analysis, the whole thing. You get all the stories written by my talented colleagues, plus additional news, sports, and business coverage with the e-edition. The details for all of these deals can be found at account.kansascity.com/subscribe. And if you're having trouble hunting down any of those offers, send me an email, bkirchhoff@kcstar.com, and I'll get you to the right place. Whether it's the Sports Pass or the full subscription, you're getting and supporting the best sports and news coverage in Kansas City and helping us produce programs like Sports Beat KC. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back on Thursday with another episode.